Can you hear me now? Too loud? No. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our first inductee tonight in the builder category, Mr. Jim Kenworth. Jim was born and raised in the UK and could only take it for 26 years before moving to Montreal, where he stayed for another 18 years, but for the past 40 years he's been in Ottawa. Jim was a fine UK junior squash player, but he's best known for his off-court activities. Jim was editor of a number of Ottawa squash publications. He served on the Ottawa District Squash Association, was president in 1984 to 86. He was a regular contributor to Squash Life and Lead Point, Squash Ontario magazines. On the Squash Canada scene from 1978. In 1978, Jim was co-editor of the Canadian Squash Guide. From 1979 to 85, I forgot my book. He was editor of the CSRA Annual Handbook, which during his period of time went from 80 pages to 200 pages. And I have a copy of it by the window. I forgot to bring it up. In 2008, Jim Kenworth was in charge of historical records and a statistician for South Squash Canada's website. And in 2014, he was mandated to update all Canadian national championships, plus university teams and masters, a total of 20 categories. On the international scene, in 2009, he updated the results of Canadian squash players in 14 categories. In 2010, he became a Quebec jester. In 2012, he updated the Lapin and Grant historical records for the Canadian jesters. Jim has won awards in 1983, Squash Ontario Special Achievement Award, 1984, the Doug Gilbert Award as a sports best volunteer leader in Canada. In 1994, he was inducted into the Squash Canada Wall of Fame, and in 2012, Squash Canada presented him with a certificate of appreciation. In 2013, he was honored by the Canadian Jesters with a trophy presentation at the Lapin Grant in Vancouver for the great work he did for the Lapin Grant historical records. Please join me in welcoming the best and only true Canadian squash historian, Mr. Jim Kenworth.
The Ontario Squash Hall of Fame, to Janice Lardner, my nominator, and to Jamie Nichols, and Lindsay Yates, and all the other people in the Squash Ontario office who have organized this lovely evening, a very big thank you. No one could have been more surprised than me to have been selected for this great honor. So it is a thrill to be here. Congratulations also to my co-inductees, Victor and Robert. Thank you also to everyone else in this room, because you are really my bread and butter. The players, the coaches, the officials, the club owners, and the administrators who have been the subjects of my statistical work over the years. Although the Hall of Fame is located at the White Oaks Club, it is appropriate that this ceremony be held here tonight at one of Toronto's most distinguished clubs, celebrating its 190th birthday. At the scene of the 84th European doubles championships. I can relate to that figure as I celebrate my 84th birthday tomorrow. I have visited Toronto in the past for awards from the Sports Federation of Canada, the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and Squash from Ontario, and I'm recorded on a couple of walls of fame. But this is my first hall of fame. So with my wife Gillian and daughter Lucy, we are very excited to be here. Sadly, our other daughter had to teach today and couldn't make it. We are also delighted to be surrounded by so many friends from the squash community. And that is from the youngest to the oldest. This is an interesting honor for me because I've never been outstanding as a player, a coach, or official, but represent that tiny group of archivists, curators, editors, historians, and statisticians dedicated to preserving squash facts, figures, and memories. I'm therefore very happy to accept this honor tonight on behalf of the group and greatly appreciate the insight of the Ontario Squash Hall of Fame in making the preservation of past information one of their missions. Needless to say, many different people have provided tremendous encouragement and helped me over the past 35 years. They're too numerous to list, but there are a few I'd like to mention. These include George Morfitt and Neil Desaulniers in the West, Michael McBean, Richie Bell, Kerry and Michael Martin in Quebec, Ian Stewart, who I was delighted to meet Marlene tonight, Lonnie Gillen, Ed Brack, and Tony Swift here in Ontario, and Mark Lalonde and John LeBook of the Jesters. I would also like to recognize all the wonderful people in the national and provincial association offices, and friends outside of Canada at the World Squash Federation and the US Squash Office, who have helped me. Newspapers, minutes of meetings, websites, and club histories have also yielded much valuable information. I would, however, be remiss not to acknowledge the wonderful work of Brian Mutimer, a University of Alberta student unknown to most people, who in 1970 was commissioned by the CSRA, as it was then, to write a history of squash in Canada. He produced the History of Squash Rackets in Canada, which is the most comprehensive and interesting publication on squash in Canada up to the early 1970s. And it's the source of many of my earlier statistics. I'm used to holding this. I started playing squash in England in 1941 during the German Blitz of London. Equipment was scarce, courts in poor condition, and games were often interrupted by air raid sirens as we fled for help. big tournaments returned, great players emerged. But the game was still only played in a handful of countries. By the 1970s, about 60 countries were involved, and now, 40 years later, there are nearly 200 countries, with about 50,000 courts, ranging from Ushuaia at the bottom tip of South America to Longyearbyen, I don't know how to pronounce that, but up in the Arctic, up in the north of Norway. In addition, every continent has now produced at least one male and one female world champion. I think that is a wonderful testimony to good marketing. I've played in courts on 3 continents, but the most memorable one was in Libya, North Africa. It had no roof. Its front wall was decorated with a silhouette of a lady draped over a map of the Mediterranean, head in Turkey, toes in Morocco. And because of the sun, it was totally unplayable after 7:30 in the morning. During my life, I've also been lucky enough to watch many great players in their prime, including Mahmoud Karim, Hashim Khan, and many of his relatives, including Sharif, who is with us tonight, I believe. Jeff Hunt, Heather Mackay, Colin Adair, and the many distinguished players already in this Hall of Fame. Recognition is the key and happy theme tonight. We all enjoy being recognized, whatever walk of life we are in. So I congratulate Squash Ontario on setting up a Game of Fame, Hall of Fame, which can be enjoyed by all squash devotees, and hope that other provinces will follow suit. I noticed recently that the names of nearly all coaches and officials have been quietly removed from provincial and national websites across the country. These people are all most worthy of recognition and are a vital part of squash's marketing arsenal. So I hope the names will be scored soon. There have been many ingenious ways of creating squash courts, such as converting sail lofts and storerooms. So in conclusion, I would like to recall one tale which has always amused me. It happened in the Second World War on Vancouver Island at Patricia Bay RCAF base. The commanding officer, a certain Poppy Hope, was an ardent squash player that had no court, and being wartime couldn't get financing for one. However, there was money for men's spiritual, if not physical life. He was able to get funds to build a chapel. It was a beautiful little chapel, complete with gallery, and by a curious coincidence, happened to be exactly the same size as an English squash team. As you can see, Poppy was a true worshipper of the game. His motto was, "Play now, pray later." for listening to me. Good night and bonjour.
The second inductee tonight is Mr. Victor Harding. I'm going to start with Victor's off-court activities first. Victor was a member of the World Professional Squash Association Board from 1977 to 1981. He was chair of 2 Canadian doubles at our famous DNR club, the 98-year-old club that we just lost, and which is being rebuilt. Victor was chair of the Squash Canada Patron Endowment Fund from 88 to 92. At the time when they raised $75,000, but that was real money back in those days. Victor co-founded the Squash Canada Doubles Committee with Squash Canada President Lolly Dillon, and was a member of the Squash Ontario Board for 2 years. In 2016, he was inducted into the Ridley Athletic Lives of Distinction Hall of Fame and the U of T Hall of Fame this year. And on-court activities are a little longer. He played for the Ridley College team for 4 years in St. Catharines. He was captain and Little Big Four champ in 1966. He was on the U of T squash team for 4 years and was captain of OUAA championship team in 1970. He was a member of the Canadian team at the 1976 ISRF World Championships. A real honor to be on that team. Victor was a finalist in hardball singles in the U.S. in 1977 and in Canada in 1980. That's no small feat either. His championships: 3 Canadian Open doubles, 5 Canadian mixed doubles, 4 Canadian 40-plus doubles, and to prove that he could play softball, he won the 55-plus Canadian singles in softball. In the U.S., he won 3 U.S. Open doubles, including the first win by an all-Canadian team in 1977. He won 1 U.S. 40-plus doubles. And he won 3 Masters Games titles and won a World 40-plus doubles in 1985. All in all, 38 national and international titles and 28 provincial titles over a 30-year period. Please join me in welcoming one of Canada's best squash players ever, my old pal, a guy I used to call partner, Victor Harding.
After the ceremonies, members of the Hall of Fame Committee, fellow inductees Rob and Jim, other Hall of Fame members here tonight, and ladies and gentlemen. Peter, thank you for those kind words. I almost didn't recognize who you were talking about, and I'm sure that some of my contemporaries in the room here tonight, and I mean Anderson, Griffin, Boyd, and Murray, we're wondering as well. You can't have been talking about Vicious Vic. How the hell did he win all those titles? I guess the answer is if you play this game long enough, you can win some. But believe me, there were lots of losses as well. Tonight gives me an opportunity to thank a lot of people who helped me in my squash career and to share some personal memories. But first, I want to thank the Hall of Fame Committee, and Tony, Rob, Peter Penny, and Sherry, who I know is not here, for my nomination. I am sure that there were lots of other worthy people put forward this year. I feel incredibly lucky and honored to be selected and to be amongst a group of people who have made such a mark in the squash world in Canada. Apparently you, Rob Brooks, and your friend Mark Sackby were partly responsible for creating the idea of the Hall of Fame. Well, you created well, and the Hall of Fame Committee and Squash Ontario are to be congratulated on creating something truly special. Next, I want to congratulate tonight's other nominees, Jim Kenward and Rob Brooks. The game of squash is lucky to have had each of these individuals direct a good portion of their life's energies to the game of squash. Jim on documenting the history of the game, and Rob, among so many things, for his work with juniors. I need to thank Eric Baldwin of the Badminton Racket Club for submitting my application and nomination to the Hall of Fame. Eric has always been supportive of my squash play and has made a world of difference to the Badminton Racket Club in so many ways. While we're on the subject of the BNR, that rowdy table over here is populated with BNR members. Given the disastrous fire that has occurred recently there, I am particularly appreciative to Peter Burgess, who organized a table of BNR members to attend tonight. Thank you guys for coming. If you will indulge me, I'd like to single out some players or some people that were instrumental in helping me become a better squash player. First of all, my father, who very few of you knew and did not see me play much, but who always followed my career closely. I was proud to win squash tournaments for him. Jack Alot, who taught me how to play squash at Ridley at age 15. He was a great racket handler himself, a wonderful mentor to me, and after I left the school, a friend. I was always sorry that Jack did not see Ridley build some softball courts. Also, somebody who many of you may not remember, but some will, Barry Taylor played with me weekly at the BNR for some very important years. Don Leggett, who is here tonight, always told me that the best way to improve your game is to play a tough match with somebody better than you every week. I would also be remiss in not identifying and thanking some of my partners. Peter Hall picked me out of relative obscurity in 1975 and launched my doubles career for me.
Can we blame him?
We went on to win several national doubles tournaments, including my first national title, the U.S. National Doubles in St. Louis in 1977. As Peter said, the first all-Canadian Tim. Peter's power and steadiness on the right wall and some shots from my side on the left, and we were a fairly potent combination. Stephen McIntyre, who couldn't be with us tonight, was my go-to partner when I was not playing a national event. Most of you know how deadly Stephen could be on the forehand. Just ask Tom Poor and Sandy Martin, who made the mistake in about the year 1978 of playing Steve instead of me in the finals of the Buffalo Bills. Jay Gillespie, who I think about all the time, and who I still can't believe is gone, played with me for several years, and we won several national titles. I want to acknowledge his wife Lily and son Jay, who are at my table tonight. You all knew him as Jungle Jay. To me, he was a Delphos Gillespie, as we were fraternity brothers as well as squash partners, members of the Kappa Alpha fraternity at the University of Toronto. He was a great partner to me and a friend. Sean McDonough, who is also here tonight and who endured me for more than 15 years.
Wow!
Hard to believe. Go
For Sean! Hip hip!
Go easy on him, Sandy. He's been your loss. Sean is faster and steadier on the court for his age than anybody I know. I'm also proud of the fact that I played mixed doubles for all those years, and perhaps added some strength to the mixed doubles draw. I've had some great mixed doubles partners. Barb Savage was my partner for 6 years, and we won several titles together. As a mixed doubles player, Barb was never afraid to shoot. Nobody was or still is gutsier on the court than Lolly Tiller. It wasn't always pretty, but we almost always got the job done. I also played with and won with Eleanor Gorman in the 1987 Canadian Mixed. Barb Cooper and I played a couple of doubles tournaments together, including the 2002 World 40s. I think it was 40s. What a pleasure it was to play with somebody as athletic as she is and who hits the ball as hard as she does. Finally, I played and won some tournaments with Jane Mitchell, who's here with us tonight, who probably has the best strokes of anybody I've ever played with. Changing gears, I want to think back on my career and give you some milestones along the way. The first one is being placed in the lineup for the first time on the Ridley team by Jack Aylock. I was in grade 10. I had just taken up squash that year. We were playing the Jesters, and I was lined up to play this big, burly, overly talkative guy called Barney Lowe. I took one look at him, and I thought, I'm going to run this guy into the ground. In hindsight, I think it was a setup. I have never been so completely befuddled by an opponent in my life. Then I remember winning the Canada Cup in London, England, while at the London School of Economics as a graduate student. That was a sweet win. All those condescending Brits, all due respect, Jim, Kiwis and Aussies were so shocked that somebody from Canada actually played squash. In 1974, I won the Ontario doubles with Gordie Anderson. We beat Colin Adair and Mike Desaulniers in the semis, and Peter Hall and John Swan in the finals. Not a bad day, you'd think. Worth holding on to that partner. Well, just for the history books, Anderson dumped me the next year for somebody else. Naturally, winning my first national event at U.S. doubles in St. Louis with Peter Hall was a big deal and was a stepping stone for me. It was like winning a major in golf. There is no question that this gave me confidence for the future. Peter's already mentioned that I got to the finals of the U.S. singles in 1977. How that happened, I don't know. I got creamed by Phil Matati in the semis in Canada 2 weeks before. I almost didn't enter the tournament. Anyway, somehow I managed to get myself to the finals, and I was even in the match with Tom Page until Tom decided that he had had enough of messing around and notched the pace of the game up as only he could. In 1977, as Peter mentioned, I played for Canada in the world team and individual events in England. That year's team was Colin Adair, Michael Desaulniers, Judd Walley, myself, and a spare Phil Matati. Ian Stewart's wife, Marlene, who's here tonight, fed me drugs when I couldn't sleep. And we had a ball with Penny Blake, who was our team mascot. However, it was my introduction to how much work Canada would have to do to really be competitive on the stage. Like many other nationally ranked players, I was fortunate to play against some great players in my time, and I just mentioned a couple, or a few along the way. Colin Adair, Gordie Anderson, Peter Martin, Michael Desaulniers, Phil Matati, Peter Briggs in the U.S., Ralph Howe, Dale Matier, I played in the finals of the U.S. national doubles, Victor Niederhofer, which Gordie and Sharif had both played against, and Michael Pierce. Seeing as I'm over the time limit,
Really time. Music is playing, man.
some of you have asked me whether I'm still playing, and if not, do I miss it? My last game of squash was in 2010 Canadian doubles in the 55 age category. I had a hip replacement. My doctor said I should not play competitive squash. Strangely enough, I could not see myself playing friendly squash. Originally, it was for Anderson, Griffin, Boynton, that kind of thing. So now I run my own small business, which takes a lot of time. I have a wonderful woman in my life, Marilyn, who's here with me tonight. I spend time raising money for the University of Toronto. I'm working furiously on my golf game, and I'm involved with politics. I've had a long time interest in politics. Without saying too much, let me just say that the current governments in Canada merit our attention. Let me leave you with these thoughts. The game gave me so much for so many years, for which I am very grateful. It was a huge part of my life for 40 years, as it has been for most of the people in this room. To be honored as I am tonight is very rewarding indeed, and something that I will cherish forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Everybody should be on a quiet reserve now. And we will proceed with our third and last inductee, the builder, Mr. Rob Brooks. Grew up in Philadelphia. He's an American. He's a graduate of Dartmouth College, and he taught for a couple of years after graduation. Then he was attracted to Montreal in 1976, and he stayed until 1982 as a tennis coach at the Rockland Sports Club, and was mentored by none other than Mike Ratcliffe, a very legendary coach and general manager. Rob then became the general manager in squash at the Rockland Club. He returned to Philly for a couple of years, looking to find himself, and lo and behold, he gets a call from Toronto from Mike Ratcliffe again, who has now moved to the Wingfield Club and enticed Rob to come up and run their squash programs. In 1987, Wingfield was the first of many clubs of which Rob was pro at that went into receivership. Rob assures me it wasn't his outrageous salary that caused these. Rob then had a 10-year run as squash pro and part owner of the very well-known Pine Valley Club. He was renowned for his active house leagues where he put men, women, juniors all on the same levels of play playing against each other, and at his peak had 285 in a house league. Also, his record speaks for itself in terms of his introduction of junior players to the game. He did an outstanding job. In 1998, he started a long relationship with the Sorello family of Fabulous Fitness. Now the executive of the Squash and Fitness Club. And in Rob's 40 years in the squash business, he developed generations of both competitive and recreational squash players. Rob, off the court, was served on the board of Squash Ontario for many years and was an outstanding president for 3 years. He co-founded the Ontario Squash Hall of Fame with the late Mark Satchby, the Hall of Famer. He chaired the Hall of Fame Board of Governors from 2005 to 2013. Rob the Park created the annual charity golf classic, raising dollars for junior squash, and in 2005 was nominated as a Canadian Jester. Over the years, Rob has been presented with numerous awards by the squash and sports communities. Please join me in welcoming our newest inductee, Rob Squash is My Life Brooks.
The key ingredient in my 66 years of life has been family and friends. Friends, as we know, are the family we choose for ourselves. I spent the first 25 years of my life trying to find a vocation that will allow me to be the best person I could be and make a positive impact in the lives of others. I learned along the way that the more energy and effort you put into a task, the more you receive back. The more you accept your own weaknesses and not blame others for your misfortune, the stronger you will become and the more impact you can have. In my younger years, I certainly did not think I would have the honor of standing in front of so many family and friends here tonight, being recognized as a builder of our sport. It is humbling, and I thank the Board of Ontario Squash Hall of Fame for this opportunity. My congratulations to my fellow inductees, Jim Kenward and Victor Harding, and my thanks to and Peter Hall for the kind introduction, and to the Squash Ontario team, Jamie, Lindsay, Lauren, and Sherry, for making this such a special evening for the squash community. I spent my first 18 years in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My father, Frank, was a doctor, and my mother, Emily, was a nurse. I looked up to my older brother and sister, Bill and Sally, and aspired to be like them. In our neighborhood, all the kids would gather outside and play together. All ages were included. No one was excluded, and we learned so much from sports and play. My parents gave me my first wooden squash racket to take to Dartmouth College in 1969. Ironically, it was my roommate who played on the varsity squash team while my passion was soccer. I got my first glimpse of the career I wanted when I participated in an off-campus Dartmouth program teaching elementary school in Jersey City, New Jersey. This experience showed me in a powerful way how much I could benefit personally while having a positive impact on others as an educator. We took field trips with the children, traveling into New York City and as far as Dartmouth College. These trips helped provide learning and life experiences beyond the classroom. They also highlighted to me the tremendous responsibility that we take on as coaches and educators when we train young athletes and young minds. I had every expectation of pursuing teaching for the rest of my career. And I was right. So how did I get here? And why squash? Mike Radcliffe. Mike was my squash mentor and role model. He helped me learn the sport that I love and what it means to be a squash teaching professional. Mike was the consummate rackets pro. He was always there for his students, putting them first, and it worked. Players like Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova sought him out in their moments of need, and I watched that as he trained Billie Jean coming back from an injury. In 1975, I traveled to Montreal for a short 2-week stay with my sister's family over Christmas. Fortunately, the Brass were happy to accommodate me for a longer stay. Since this led to a multi-year stint at Rockland Sport. At Rockland, I had a good agent. At Rockland, I was a tennis pro first and eventually became the full-time squash pro. That club was like a family. For members and staff alike, it was our second home. I recall in a particular gala for the Montreal Squash League where at least 100 of our members of all ages were in attendance. The positive energy was palpable. There was so much great squash and community on display. I have always tried to bring that same sense of friendship and family to every event that I've run in my 4 decades in squash. 3 families in particular were very strong influences on me during this time and deserve to be recognized. The Souls, the Becks, and of course, the Brass. Unfortunately, the Brass deserted me for Toronto, but made the mistake of leaving me their address, and I caught up with them later on. It was Mike Routhcliffe who extended an invitation to join him at the Wingfield Club in Toronto, and the Brass were kind enough to host me again, this time for a much longer 33-year visit. During my career in Toronto, at Wingfield and later at Partners West, Pine Valley, Fit for Life, Fabulous Fitness, which added the stability, although the names changed, but never did they have any problems. They have always been there. Fabulous Fitness, Executive Squash and Fitness. I met many more mentors, friends, and families that would make an impact on me, and I would like to take a moment to recognize some of them. Sherry Funston mentored me off the court, helping me learn how to focus on being a builder within the broader Ontario squash community. She was always at my side, providing guidance, support, and friendship. I still remember in 1996, Sherry came up with the idea of hosting a special tribute dinner for Jim Mason during the Canadian Junior National Championship. Jim was so moved by the event, and it was wonderful to hear him speak with love and emotion, and for him to see how loved he was. The Hooleys, the DeMoros, the Powers, the Rasheeds families who were part of the team and extended family at Pine Valley Rackets Club. 3 generations of the Cirillo family. Frank and Libby, the parents, their 4 children, Enzo, Mary Grace, Natalie, Nella, and their 11 grandchildren, all of whom play squash. The Cirillos have been very supportive of my ideas and given me free rein to do what I love to do most. And they're very relieved that I haven't dragged them into bankruptcy.
Yes.
Abdul Khalil, who over the past many years has been a friend and a great coaching collaborator. Helen Bonnyman, Jean Gardner, Elka, Marcus for helping to be a shining example for many of the young squash players, boys and girls. Jamie Nichols, who Charles Braff once informed me, said he wanted to be a Pat Richardson or a Rob Brooks. Jamie, you're a true friend, and you showed great wisdom in your choice of Jessica as your better half. Although he was younger than me, Mark Sackby felt like an older brother and contributed so much wisdom when I needed advice, which was quite often. Poor Mark. He was very busy with me. Barb Cooper and Ann Smith made me part of the Pan Am Games, which is a thrilling opportunity to see what it feels like to represent your country as an athlete. Standing next to a proud parent of a gold medalist who I'd known earlier in the years, while the national anthem plays, is incredibly moving. John Shaker and the Burns family provided much corporate support to many. John's been doing the Ontario Junior Close, and the Burns helped with the Ontario Masters. Bob Bowers and Heinel Laszlo helping me set the clock back by teaching me to be proactive in my training methods, as well as his work with our juniors. I return to Maine every year to come to the very same spot that holds a strong significance for me. Starting in 1994, my best friend from my university days bring our group of friends there. Years later, when Sandy was fighting cancer, he convinced the group to reunite at the same spot. After he passed away, we continued the tradition. On one trip in 2015, looking out and seeing the sunrise over the Atlantic Ocean together, we saw a huge double rainbow. On my return journey, going through Fort Erie into Canada and rounding the corner at Niagara Falls, I saw the biggest sunset I've ever seen, casting a brilliant glow on the Gold Dome at White Oaks, the home of the Sackeys and Matt. It was quite a tearful ride, but I knew something good was happening. In closing, I want to share with you the words of Jim Mason, who summed up this great game: fun, fitness, and friendship. Those words should ring so true to all of us. Everyone in this room knows the feeling that you get when you step off court after a hard-fought, hard-won, or lost battle and feel the appreciation of the audience for your efforts. A job well done. I would like more people in Ontario to experience this feeling so they too can realize how much squash can enrich their lives both on and off the court.